In the past, it was common to create a LAN using coaxial cable. Computers would be connected to the coaxial backbone of an Ethernet LAN using T-pieces, and an electrical resistor called a terminator would be fitted at each end of the backbone to prevent signal echoes. This particular arrangement is known as the bus topology. This type of network had the advantage of being easy to set up, and if one of the workstations failed, the network would continue to function. Coaxial cable is still widely used today for applications such as cable television, but coax, as it's otherwise known, has been superseded by UTP cable for local area networks. On an Ethernet LAN, data is broken into frames. A frame is a burst of high and low voltages which represent the ones and zeros of binary encoded data. On an old-style bus, these frames would be broadcast on the backbone of the LAN. Every machine would see all of the frames, but only the intended recipient would choose not to ignore them. If two computers attempted to transmit a frame at the same time, there'd be a collision and neither frame would get through. Both computers would back off for a random amount of time and then try again. Every standard Ethernet frame is preceded with a 7-byte sequence of alternating ones and zeros, known as the preamble. This allows the sender and the receiver to synchronize with each other. Another single byte, known as the start of frame delimiter, immediately follows this. This pattern of bits acts as a signal to say there's a frame on the way. Strictly speaking, the first 8 bytes are not part of the frame because they're exactly the same every time. The next 6 bytes contain the destination MAC address, followed by another 6 bytes for the source MAC address. Another 2 bytes are used to indicate the type and length of the frame. This gives some indication of the nature of the data, which might be a packet of TCP/IP data, for example. The frame data itself, that is the payload, occupies between 46 and 1500 bytes. And the final part of the frame is a 4-byte frame check sequence. This is a number that's calculated by applying a mathematical formula to the frame contents, the so-called cyclic redundancy check. This calculation can be done again by the receiving device, and if the result isn't the same, it's an indication that the data has been corrupted somehow. There's a limit to the length of any cable on a network before the electrical signals become too weak to transmit data reliably. This is about 100 meters. The technical term for this weakening of the signal is attenuation. A device called a repeater can be used as a simple amplifier to boost the signal. The computers on this LAN segment are still, nevertheless, in the same collision domain. It wasn't long before UTP cable became popular and wiring could be greatly simplified using a device called a hub. An active hub could also perform the job of a repeater. But there were still issues with hubs. When one computer wanted to send a frame to another, the hub would simply broadcast the frame across the LAN. Just like on a bus, every machine would see the frame, but only the intended recipient would choose not to ignore it. This meant that only one computer at a time could transmit. As you can imagine, with several interconnected hubs, you would end up with a lot of unnecessary network traffic and frequent collisions. Computers connected together with several hubs like this are all in the same collision domain. Most LANs these days use switches instead of hubs, because switches greatly reduce the total amount of traffic on the network. How? Because a switch knows the MAC address of every device plugged directly into one of its ports. When the sender transmits a frame on a small LAN with just one switch, like this one, the switch will forward it directly to the intended recipient only. A switch does this by maintaining its own forwarding table. When a switch is turned on for the first time, it behaves like a hub because it still needs to build this table. If it sees a frame with a MAC address it doesn't know, it'll broadcast the frame on all of its ports. The computer with that MAC address will then send back an acknowledgement, and the switch will add the MAC address to its forwarding table, along with the number of the port that the acknowledgement came from. In a busy network, it doesn't take long for the switch to collect all of the information it needs. A typical switch has a microchip inside it, known as an Application-Specific Integrated Circuit, ASIC for short. This chip controls the switch. A switch also has some memory to store the forwarding table. There are 3 ways a switch can be configured to handle incoming frames. These are known as switching modes. A switch may wait for a copy of the whole frame first, then check that the data isn't corrupt by recalculating the frame check sequence. If the frame's OK, it'll be forwarded on. Corrupt frames are simply ignored by the switch. This is called store and forward switching mode. Alternatively, a switch can be set up to start forwarding a frame as soon as it's read the first 6 bytes, but before the whole frame has been received. The first 6 bytes of the frame is where the destination MAC address can be found. This is called cut-through mode. It is faster, but the downside is that there can be no error checking at all. There's also a compromise called fragment-free switching. In this mode, the first 64 bytes of the frame are read and stored. This portion of the frame contains all of the header information. The switch quickly examines the first 64 bytes and, if it appears correct, begins forwarding the frame while the rest of it is being received, on the assumption that the rest of it will be OK. If 2 computers attempt to transmit a frame simultaneously, perhaps with the same intended recipient, the switch will simply buffer some of the frames and forward them when it's ready. You can see then that there's no possibility of a collision on any of these cables. Each computer is now in its own collision domain. Another major advantage of a switch over a hub is that it allows for full duplex transmission. This means that data can be sent and received at the same time on the same stretch of cable. When there are several switches daisy-chained together and the sender and receiver are connected to the same one, the traffic flows only through that switch. If, on the other hand, the sender and the receiver are separated by several switches, each switch will forward the frames onto the next, and eventually the frames will find their way to the destination. Because Ethernet switches allow for full duplex, there's no possibility of frame collisions between these switches. With a LAN like this one, the closest switch to the sender forwards the frames to the central switch, which in turn broadcasts them to all of the other switches. It's common for a large switched LAN to have a hierarchical tiered structure. This might involve a particularly fast core switch at the top, with servers connected to it, a few distribution switches connected to the core by high-speed links, and, at the lowest level, several access switches, to which the end-user devices are attached. In this topology, there's always a path from any one device to another, assuming that nothing goes wrong. More links can be added between the devices to make this network more resilient to connection failure. With cabling like this, however, there's a danger that frames will be forwarded between switches in never-ending loops, resulting in broadcast storms that ultimately cause the network to grind to a halt. To solve this problem, switches can be set up to work with each other using a system known as the spanning tree protocol. This will essentially block some of the switch ports to create a logical tree-like structure so that there's only one way a frame can go. But if a path happens to fail, another will become available almost immediately. This model has several other benefits. Management and troubleshooting are easier. It's easy to scale up, and it becomes possible to restrict certain types of traffic to different parts of the LAN. Let's recap. A switch knows the MAC address and the port number of every computer connected directly to one of its ports. It stores this information in a forwarding table in its own memory. A switch can reduce the overall amount of traffic on a LAN because each computer is in its own collision domain. There are three ways in which a switch might handle an incoming frame, known as switching modes. These are store and forward, cut through, and fragment free. A very large switched LAN might have a hierarchical tiered architecture, with faster switches and links at the core, a distribution tier, and an access tier. The spanning tree protocol can be used to ensure loop-free forwarding on a large switched LAN with built-in redundancy.